So many of our favorites to watch. Oh look, now they're being bashed. I guess that's what we should expect on the Bullied Nostalgia Podcast. Hello everybody, we're back. This is Timothy Nesbitt, and I'm joined by the regular crew, Chance.
Hello.
John.
Yep.
And Kylan.
Hi.
And today's episode is pretty special because it is the first time we've done an episode since we had a name for this podcast. We're the Bullied Nostalgia Podcast. And what is the Bullied Nostalgia Podcast all about, Chance?
Making fun of things I didn't grow up with.
Right. Yep. Taking things that mean something to John and I and forcing us to rewatch them as adults and opening the door for Chance and Kylan to tear them apart in the most sincere and loving way. So, what do you guys want to talk about?
It's a bad movie.
I don't think we've even said the title yet.
I don't want to talk about this movie. All right. Today's episode is about Land Before Time 3, The Time of Great Giving. And I want to put a disclaimer on this one that this movie means nothing to me.
So, before we start this one, I want to say that every other thing we've done has been laughably funny. This movie is just bad. There is no good funny
Sounds
quality.
like you're laughing.
I remember when I was watching this movie, I had a Google Doc open because I was trying to mark down things that I wanted to talk about. By the end of it, the Google Doc was so small that I just closed it and memorized them because it would be less effort than bringing my computer over and reading them off.
So, okay.
Okay, wait, before we jump into talking about this, let's talk a little bit about what this movie is. Land Before Time was a movie that came out in 1988 and was directed by Don Bluth. If you want to know about Don Bluth or any of his great movie works or contributions to pop culture, certainly I could go off on a tangent talking about those things, but that's not what we're here for today.
Like Land Before Time 2.
No, he wasn't even involved in that. So what's interesting is that the movie that we watched this week is not like Land Before Time. Land Before Time is a dark story with lots of death and lots of allegory and implied meanings. This movie is directed at preschoolers, right? That's the takeaway. This is trying to tap into preschoolers want to use their imagination and pretend to be dinosaurs. There was a huge gap between those two movies. Land Before Time came out in 1988. Land Before Time 2 came out in 1994. And this movie came out in 1995. They were knocking them out each year, essentially. And there's no coincidence that they came out in 1994 and beyond, because one movie came out in 1993.
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. That's right. Jurassic Park lit the world on fire with Dinomania, and Universal Pictures essentially said, wait, we have a dinosaur property that we own. We could make tons of money off of this. And so they then started the 13 sequel movies that have released up to this point.
14 now.
Well, I don't consider the first movie a sequel.
Oh, right.
But yes. And so they really cashed in on them. We'll get into our opinions on this work of art. But before we do, Kylan, what's this movie about? What happened in The Land Before Time?
Nothing.
3?
Nothing happened. There was no water, and then there was water, and also velociraptors, and that was it.
Okay, raptors, once again.
A triceratops.
What was popular? Jurassic Park, right? This is them trying to cash in on everything that kids knew at the time. But that's not a sufficient description.
Okay.
Does somebody else want to take a stab at what happened in this movie?
I can take a shot at it. Essentially, the movie starts with a meteor storm. A bunch of meteors hit the ground and all the water dries up. So, the dinosaurs get really mad at each other, trying to ration out the water. The dinosaurs, who are essentially kindergartners, go and fight bigger dinosaurs to try and get the water back. And then all the dinosaurs work together, fight a bunch of raptors, and the world is saved. The end. Plus, there are some dinosaurs who are meant to be teenagers, and they're awful. That's it.
But the title of the movie is The Time of Great Giving.
The Time of Great Giving.
Chance, how does the title fit in with what happened in the movie?
Because the narrator says it in the last 2 minutes.
This is true.
There's no giving. There's only selfishness. 99% of that movie. And then in the last minute, they decide to share. And the narrator labels it as The Time of Great Giving.
Can I talk about this movie now?
Well,
Be my guest.
I guess, so people are speaking pretty negatively about this so far.
And we are justified.
This was a really cool movie for me. So I remember, because I was born in 1989, and so the movie had just come out.
You would have been 7 when this movie came out.
Right. I'm talking about the first Land Before Time.
Oh.
But essentially, my earliest memories is like Land Before Time was a VHS that we owned in our house. And then when The Land Before 2 came out, I got it as a Christmas gift. And I was so excited because I had watched Land Before 1 so many times. And then, sure enough, the next Christmas, I got The Time of Great Giving. And this would actually continue up until...
You were a teenager.
Yeah. It sort of started to border like... I was excited to see the next movie, but I also felt like I shouldn't be excited to see the next movie.
Right.
I
There was a little bit of embarrassment. In public, you would say things like, people keep buying me these movies, as if you didn't want them. But I knew better.
I think the last movie that my parents bought for me, or my mom bought for me, was Land Before Time 8, The Big Freeze. So I would subsequently rent the rest of the Land Before Times. I've only not seen Land Before Time 14.
And now you know about it.
Now I know, so I might be renting it. Anyways.
Oh my goodness. Speaking of renting it, I rented this movie 2 times.
Might as well have just bought it.
Oh my word. John and I watched this movie together. I rented it for $5. That made me angry.
Right.
Then the boys, I gave them homework that they needed to watch it. And they didn't get around to it.
Didn't have
So
a chance.
then I had to rent it again for them to watch
it again.
I was not paying attention, thankfully. But regardless, I have so much pent-up rage about this movie. My contributing role to these podcasts is research and knowledge of the pop culture implications. My Google search algorithms are out the window. I don't know how many ads I'm going to get for Land Before Time sequels now. But that's my cross to bear, I guess.
So
Sorry, John.
no,
Back to
that's okay. We in trying to pick movies from our childhood, I have a bin of VHSs underneath my bed. I've gotten rid of most of our VHSs from our childhood.
And your VCR, so.
Yeah.
That would
I also don't own a VCR. I might have a problem. Anyways, I've held on to all my Land Before Time movies. And so we were looking through, and I said, let's watch number 3. Because number 3, The Time of Great Giving, I just remember as a kid being super cool because
Velociraptors.
it was the introduction of Velociraptors. So in the first Land Before Time movie, there was a single sharp tooth.
A T-Rex.
T-Rex, yeah.
Speak English, John. We don't need ducky speak.
In the second movie, there was 2 sharp teeth, or 2 T-Rexes, and then in the third movie, they also call the raptors sharp teeth or a sharp tooth, but there was more than
3
2.
of them.
3 of them.
So,
Which adds up to less than 2 T-Rexes.
I just remember it being like the coolest action sequence of all the Land Before Time movies. So.
If it
Which,
is the coolest,
unfortunately, is probably true.
if it's the coolest action scene, I'm sorry, John.
There were some big fights in the end there between all of the parent dinosaurs and the raptors.
Yeah, lots of tail swinging to hit the raptors or pushing rocks on them.
Everybody loves the rock push. That's how you beat every dangerous dinosaur in a Land
The
Before Time
movie
movie.
starts with them playing rock push, so they seeded this the entire time.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
This movie's a lot deeper than we thought.
And you know the crazy thing? They get stopped by the teenagers who take the rock and then play it with them. Foreshadowing to the climax of the movie.
Where, sorry, for people who are listening, the bullies help them knock a rock onto the dinosaurs. Before we move on, I don't want to come at you this way, John, but there's more to the conversation that we had when you were choosing a Land Before Time movie to watch. I believe the exact quote was, "I don't want to watch number 2 because I've watched it too recently."
How recently?
Okay, well... Dude, I just remember number 2 more vividly. And so I thought, number 3, it's been a while.
John is just staring at the box art and the VHS tapes.
Yeah. By watching it, I mean I don't have a VCR player.
I've just been staring at the tape. Okay. Whew. What do people want to talk about?
Can I start with the main characters?
Sure. So let me touch in on the main characters here. There's some fascinating pieces to this, but also some very dark and depressing ones. Of the initial Land Before Time cast from the first movie, only Sarah's voice actor, Candace Hudson, came back for any of the sequels. She did the first 3 sequels, or first 4 movies, if you want to say it that way. And what I found very interesting is, for the most part, with the exception of Petrie, they actually had cast children to do all of the voices. And what that means, though, is...
You get some of the most obnoxious creatures.
Well,
in the world.
there's that, but more than anything, it means that they have to be very conscious of what the kids sound like. For instance, Littlefoot got recast 9 times on these movies to keep it a child's voice. And the ones that sound the weirdest are when he's hitting puberty, that voice actor. The girls were able to stay on a lot longer because puberty was less of a factor. But the girl who played Ducky in the first Land Before Time movie, her name was Judith Barcy. She did not return because she was brutally murdered when she was 10 years old by her dad, who killed himself and her mom as well. So really dark back ends on some of this stuff. But I guess just take that with a grain of salt, that when you're making fun of these characters, Kai, you're making fun of actual children. That it's not adults pretending to be children, except Petrie. Take any swing you want at him. He's an old man.
Okay, I won't make fun of their voices.
Okay.
But I can tell you that there are 2 character archetypes out of the, 6 characters. One of them is dumb as a box of rocks, and the other one is would fight a box of rocks. Those are the only 2 characters you get, and it's awful.
Would you say that description is about the main characters or the bullies?
I think every character, now that I think about it.
I think the bullies embody those two traits more than the main characters do. Dumb as a box of rocks or would fight.
I think watching this movie reminded me that the characters don't speak regularly. Ducky.
Oh, no.
Right. She says, try to find Sarah, hide it from us. Or, you know, scare me. Just things.
Somebody said something yesterday. So it said, we stop speaking like Lamb before time or something like that.
It was rubbing off on you. So out of the 5 main characters, Spike doesn't talk and Petrie and Ducky don't speak regularly. So really, 3 out of 5.
I did not eat her. I did not.
Yeah, you said it reminded you of The Room. That's funny. Oh, hi, Mark.
And I think, too, how they name things. We talked about Sharptooth earlier, but it's no proper names for dinosaurs, right? There's swimmer, flyer, 3-horn, long neck,
Actually,
spike tail.
Can I take this? Because I think this is the dumbest part of the movie. Because they're like, oh yes, look at those tree stars. Or that great bright circle in the sky. And then they see a fire and they're like, oh no, it's a fire. It's completely arbitrary to what's named properly and what isn't.
And they say Earth.
Earth shakes! Not an earth shake!
It's like, why didn't you just say quake? Like, why do you have to change it?
Shake. I would like to give props to 3 dinosaurs in specific. They have a Hypsilophodon, a Muttabarosaurus, and a Nodosaurus in there.
Nobody knows what those look like.
Hip, Mutt, and Nod.
Oh!
The 3 bullies... Well, Nod isn't really, because a Nodosaurus, they would have just looked at the spelling. I was like, oh, that looks like Nod. But at least they kind of pulled from something there. I don't know. Well, tell us about Hip, Mutt, and Nod, Chance.
As a person who just very recently was a teenager, they're dinosaurs. That's what I could say.
Thank you for that teenage perspective.
They are, they're very obviously meant to be that, like, weird phase before somebody becomes a teenager. I think they're, like, meant to be aged somewhere between 11 and 14, I'd say.
Oh, okay, they're preteens. Yeah, I could see that. That tracks.
And that's why there's a whole message about them still being kids, because they're not adults yet.
And they have a lot to prove.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a fair description.
And so one of them has troubled life at home.
And then the other 2 are just dumb.
That's
The other
right.
2 are dumb.
We're talking about the kids who bully the main characters right now. When we find out that Hip has a troubled life at home, his dad is yelling at him.
Mom, I thought.
No, it's a male dinosaur.
Can never tell.
Sarah's dad says, you shouldn't yell at your kid. That's what they're going to learn, and that's what they're going to pass on to others.
But this movie is meant for preschool.
Right. Who's that parental lesson for? What is going on?
Yeah, I also found that a bit confusing, that they were teaching parents should stop yelling at their kids. But then they also had like a lot of things about food scarcity and that the kids should save the adults who are having problems with food. And just, again, messages I don't think kids necessarily need to hear about.
They were in a lot of weird
providing
angles.
for their family.
Parents are super petty. That's the takeaway of that movie.
They're so petty. And I get that the idea is we're supposed to be siding with the long necks in this movie. But I feel like even if they don't like the rules set up by Sarah's dad, they should at least, like, use just the smallest bit of logical reasoning.
Yeah,
It's
there's
like, oh, long necks only eat at night. Well, what about baby long necks? I'm sure that's allowed.
what about purple ones?
Yeah, exactly.
By far, one of the worst scenes is when Sarah's dad gets a droplet of water on him, and he's like, "Your child should be banished."
So I think it's very apparent that there are several antagonists in this movie who take different roles. Interestingly enough, the only antagonist who does not sing a song, however, are the Raptors.
The songs are especially egregious. Like,
Okay.
They're awful.
whoa, just 1 second, Colin. John and I threw together the jingle to this podcast in an hour. And I think it turned out pretty okay. It was pretty fun. And I feel like that has something to do with the fact that we wanted to do it. There is no love or enjoyment in any of these songs. Not only would I be surprised if they spent an hour on them, I feel like they were assigned them. It's like, I need this song on my desk in 45 minutes. And the room's like, oh no, I guess I'll write a rock opera about saving water and standing firm in your beliefs. The songs are terrible.
They're so bad.
Okay. Well, at least the Bully song isn't that bad.
No, it is.
It's bad. The song that has the most in common with a song that isn't terrible is the song that Littlefoot sings about all kids needing help or whatever it is.
And it still feels like standing in the AMV line. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's still bad, but there's parts of that song where I'm like, oh, this is good. And then it'll be bad, and then I'll be like, oh, this is good. It's like
This is refreshingly likable.
It's like that song is the only one where someone was like, oh, I only have an hour? This is the best song I could write in that time. Whereas the other ones were like, ugh, they expect me to spend an hour on this?
5 minutes. Done. I was thinking about those songs, and I'm like, if a person was listening to the first two, the Bully or the Water song,
Life is better off not listening to those songs.
yeah,
They reused the score by James Horner that was written for Land Before Time 1. And it is so strong. It is so powerful. But nothing's happening when this music is... You get these triumphant brass instruments and these emotional strings instruments. And it's like... They're just playing with a rock.
I think if there's one thing I have to complain about most in this movie, is that it is so slow. Nothing happens.
That's what I found interesting about this movie. I agree with you that it felt slow, but looking back, I was so surprised on how many things happened, and yet it still felt like it dragged on. They got into a fight with bullies. There's this whole thing about water scarcity. There's a
They
meteor
looked for
shower.
water 12
They looked
times.
for water. There was a giant fire. They had a fight with raptors. They went into whatever. It's a lot of things happened, but it still felt so slow for
So
some
they
reason.
cram a lot into 70 minutes, but somehow it feels like nothing happens.
It was 70 minutes? I felt so much more than that.
John, what do you want to talk about?
Well, Chance had mentioned that the Raptors didn't have a singing number in the movie, and that's because
Sharp teeth don't speak.
that's right.
Who are you?
If you're a carnivorous dinosaur, you don't have a soul.
Which is why it's so funny that Spike does not talk.
Yeah,
right.
Because
this
he
is
is
the grand
obviously-
Spike theory. He is a carnivore. He is a
Obviously.
beast.
Ducky has tamed the monster.
I don't even... This long pause,
I can cut it out. That's fine.
I don't care. I want this to stay in just to show how nothing this movie is.
Oh, this is a bad movie.
I have nothing to contribute beyond what I've already said.
So bad.
Mhm.
John, keep this conversation going.
John, you want to pretend like it's good?
So I sort of got excited about us maybe watching more Land Before Time.
No,
that is
never.
not an option, John.
Never, John. Never.
I think we could change the name of this
No.
podcast.
Screaming at Land Before Time.
Forcing ourselves to watch a terrible series. The series.
We specifically watched Land Before Time 13 over and over again.
Right, number 13 is supposed to be the worst one of all 14 of them.
I want to be very clear here. I think Land Before Time 3 is the worst movie I have ever seen.
That's a broad claim.
I know.
would not make that.
I swear, I haven't seen
Unfortunately,
anything
Kylan-
worse.
Unfortunately, Kylan, movies like Dougal exist.
I never watched
Dougal. We're not watching that.
That's a movie I grew up with.
Dougal.
And I'm so sad I did.
I remember when Dougal came out, the trailers, the animation looks so good.
And at the same time...
I know a lot about that movie. This is how toxic my knowledge of pop culture is.
And at the same time, as that movie came out, Hoodwinked was coming out.
Yes.
Which looked awful.
Yes.
But in reality, Hoodwinked is an incredible movie. It's so good. And Dougal is so
Bad.
So bad.
We're getting way off topic
Right.
here. But
Talking
anything,
about anything other than Land
anything
Before
to not
Time
talk about
3.
Land Before Time 3. That's right. So Dougal is fascinating because it's... Chance just spit up his drink.
I'm looking up Dougal and it got 8% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's so bad.
I did not expect you to keep talking about Dougal.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the cast and it's all these really big names.
Yeah. So here's the thing about Dougal. It's fascinating. Dougal was a French cartoon character. I guess he's gotten more prominence there. He's had several movies and TV shows and stuff there. And someone from the States saw it and was like, oh, that animation looks really good. I bet you we could make a lot of money. So they brought it over, but they didn't feel like the French humor, storytelling was in line with North American audiences. So they went back and they destroyed it. They edited it top to bottom, completely changed that movie according to what they thought North American audiences would like. And they thought wrong. Yeah. It is so bad.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Can we keep on talking about Dougal? Anything else?
Dougal is almost something that would fit in Bullied nostalgia for Chance.
Yeah.
We could certainly look at those types of things down the road, destroying your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, we've got Land Before Time.
Oh my gosh, I did not expect you to be like, I think we need to get back on track. Anyways, Dougal!
Dougal is so interesting.
All right, brother. What do you have to add?
No, I think that's everything on my end.
We have to add nothing, because this movie is bad enough on its own.
Yeah. So I have nothing to talk about other than Dougal. So we'll probably end it off here. We'll just go quickly around the room for closing comments. Chance?
Kylan put it really eloquently at the very start of this. Land Before Time 3, The Time of Great Giving, is a nothing movie. There is no reason to watch it. You would spend 70 minutes better staring at a wall. That is my closing comment.
Kylan?
Can we go watch Dougal now?
Jonathan?
Yeah, it wasn't as good as I remember. Yeah.
Dad, don't cut out these sides. These are comedy gold.
Yeah, it isn't, this is one that, it did hurt my memories of this movie. I don't think I like it as much as I used to like it.
As much?
He still likes it, just not as much.
Still my top 20.
Still, third place greatest movie of all time, but...
Anyways, so, yeah. I guess my nostalgia has been bullied.
For me, on the one hand, I do appreciate that the boys did not see this coming. I was the only person who knew how bad this was going into it. The boys had never seen a Land Before Time sequel before. They'd only seen the original. And so they were expecting something in line with that. I remember Chance saying, "Wait, there's songs in this?" I was outside of the window of who these were catered to. By the time this movie came out, I was 12. So they were not focused on me. 13 maybe? I was 13. So outside the target audience.
He was a bully.
And so that's right, I was hip. But because John got these every year, I did get to experience most of them. Thankfully, this is only the second and third time I've watched this movie. I had to watch it twice. But yeah, overall, I did have a good time watching the boys discover this.
But not a good time watching
But
it.
not a good time rediscovering it myself. I would also say that now I have to live with this being in my search history a whole bunch. So thanks for that, John. Otherwise, I think that's all from me. Thanks for listening, whoever's out there. Have a great day, and talk to you guys later.
Look out for weirdos.
Look out for weirdos.
Yay, it's over! Thank goodness.
We're done.